Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Nurse Judy's Story Time. So obviously I'm not really dressed appropriately for story time. I was just live on Facebook reading a poem and sharing that with everybody. So I'm going to ask you guys to just give me a minute. I'm going to do a real quick change and I'll be right back. Surprise! I pulled out my bunny suit. He has his little black eyes and his little pink nose, and I did my little pink nose, and I did my whiskers, and ta-da! I got my pigtails in for story time. We are ready to go. All right, but before I get started, I want to share with you a little bit of a silly story, but it's one of my favorites, and it's about this time of year, and this was years and years and years ago when my kids were little, and it was Easter time, and I used to call the radio station all the time to try and win concert tickets. And it happened to be, we were living in the state of Washington, and it happened to be Easter time, and Vince Gill was coming in concert out there. And like I said, this was back a bazillion years ago. This was back in the early 90s. And Vince Gill he was coming in concert, and I wanted to go see him in concert. And they were it wasn't Be This Caller or anything. They actually kind of made us do stunts to win tickets. And if you can't tell, I mean, Nurse Judy's always been out there just a little bit. But I got through, and they asked me to dress like an Easter bunny, go to the mall, and go to one of those fancy makeup counters and sing Easter Parade. So there were some obstacles there. I mean, one, I didn't have a bunny costume. Two, I didn't know the Easter Parade song. Three, I lived on the other side of Puget Sound from Seattle, and I had to logistically figure out how to get from Port Orchard, Washington, over to Seattle. So back then, I had a friend named Jan, and she was my best friend. We did everything together. Our kids played together. It was an amazing time. And I went to her and I said, they want me to do these things. And she was as much of a nut job as I am. And she was like, okay, so we need a bunny costume. And I'm like, okay, where am I going to get a bunny costume? Well, back then I was also a Navy wife. And the Navy Wives Club actually had a bunny costume. So I called my ombudsman and I said, hey, can I borrow that costume? And I did explain to her why. And she was like, Judy, you're crazy. And I said, I know, but I really want to go see Vince Gill. So that being said, I went, and they gave me, it wasn't like I had to do it that day. They did give me time, not a lot of time. I think it was like by the end of the day. It wasn't a couple of days. It wasn't that day. So this happened in the morning. So we got the bunny costume. We went to the video store because that's what we did back then. I rented the video. Judy Garland was starring in it, and it was called Easter Parade. And got home, and Jan and I sat there and we learned that song actually together. And the song, I still remember it today, some parts of it. It was, let's see. In my Easter bonnet with all the frills upon it, I'll be the grandest lady in the Easter parade. Okay, Nurse Judy does not have a great voice, but I really, really wanted those tickets. So the other dilemma that I had gotten the bunny suit. I had learned the song. We spent the entire day on that. But the other part was I had 2 kids in school. She had 2 kids in school. So we took the kids out of school. We went and picked them up. I picked up some Easter candy at the store, and I put it in a basket that she happened to have had. We drove down to the dock, because in Washington, most of the time you get on a ferry and you go across to Seattle. And we took our kids and we got on this little ferry, and then we got on the really big ferry and went over to Seattle, and we went over to the mall. I don't remember the name of the mall. It may have been SeaTac Mall. I'm not sure. And we went into the big department store, and I went up to, I believe it was the Clinique. I don't know. It was some makeup counter anyway. And I was dressed as a bunny. And the woman behind the counter looked at me like I was nuts, which I could see that. But I told her what I was doing, and she was like, sure. So I had to call the radio station back from her phone, and she had to let them know. No cell phones back then, so it's not like she could snap a picture and send it to them. So she called the radio station, and she said, I have a Judy here dressed in a bunny costume, and she's supposed to sing a song for you. And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. So I got on the phone. I did not put it up to my ear. I held it like a microphone. And I belted out as loud as I could, Easter Parade. And in fact, they were yelling at me, Judy, Judy, stop, stop, stop. You got it, you got it. You won the tickets. So, of course, from there, we went right over to the radio station, and we picked up my tickets. And I got to see Vince Gill in concert for free. And that is an amazing memory from way back when that I have. I don't know if my kids remember it, but I certainly remember it. And it was a really special day, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure they thought I was kooky, but, I am kooky, and it's okay. So that's my Easter story to share with you. I hope you got a nice little giggle out of it and realized that, Nurse Judy has not, this is not something new of how I do. It's something that I did when my kids were little. And then there was a period of time when, for the jobs that I had, this isn't something I could do. And then YouTube came out, and it took me a while to discover YouTube. But I thought, you know what? Why can't I be zany in front of whoever wants to watch and get a little break and have a nice little giggle? And with everything going on right now with COVID-19 and people getting sick, and we're wearing face masks and washing your hands, and you're staying home, and you're watching all these videos and looking for all these crazy things that people are doing, well, I'm just adding to the lunacy and supporting, all of us being at home and being safe, and giving you a little bit of time to pass and hopefully enjoying it, and realize that this grown woman is just a little bit of a loon, and it's what's required in these days and times. And for me, it's just a requirement of life, because we all need something light. We need something simple. We need something to get our mind off of everything that's going on and not watching the news. So today's story does have to do kind of with Easter, but not. And it being kind of with Easter is just, it's about a bunny. So I'm sure you've all watched the movie Peter Rabbit, but this is the real story. And it's The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Potter. This is a really good story. So the movie brought him to life and did all that. But the story is just wonderful. So let's get started with The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Potter. And the illustrations in this book are awesome too. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. And there they are. There's Mother and her 4 babies. Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out. And here she is, dressing all the kids, putting their jackets on them for them to go out. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First, he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of the cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake, calling out, "Stop, thief!" Uh-oh. There's Mr. McGregor, and there's Peter. He better run. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he'd forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. Yep, that's right. Sorry, I wasn't sure about the right picture. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster so that I think he might have got away altogether if he'd not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons. It was quite new. This bird staring at him. What you doing? Could you imagine? Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter. But Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind. Oh, he got out, but he lost his coat. And 2 shoes! Oh, my! And rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden under a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully and then look under each one. Even a water can, oh my gosh, with lots of water. Presently, Peter sneezed. Phew! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. See Mr. McGregor's foot right there? That's his foot right there, so close to Peter Rabbit. Oh my goodness. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he'd not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking around. He's just trying to find his way out of that garden, isn't he? I love bunnies. They're so cute. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched, as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He'd heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 screech. I don't really know what sound a hoe makes, so that's my best. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and behind him was the gate. Wow, do you see the gate? So here's Peter Rabbit, there's Mr. McGregor, and there's the gate. Wow. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. There's his little jacket and shoes, you see, to scare the crows away. He was so tired that he plopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. Well, that was a good story about Peter Rabbit, wasn't it? How he'd gone out on an adventure during the day and gone into the garden, and he was just eating as much as he could eat till he kind of got sick to his stomach. And then he got caught by Mr. McGregor. And then he got lost in the garden. And all he wanted to do was find his way home where it was safe, right? That's a cool book. It's a cool story. So it's not really an Easter story. It's just a story about a rabbit. And it's a story I remember from when I was a little girl. So it's Friday. And I said on Friday that I would sing happy birthday, but you know what? Nobody commented. Nobody said they had a birthday this week. So, should I do it anyway? I mean, I have my hat, and I have my ears, and I did my bunny face. Or maybe I should just say goodbye today. No, it's somebody's birthday out there, so we're going to do it, and then we'll say goodbye. So here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear birthday boy or girl. Happy birthday to you and many more. I hope that you have a very happy Easter. I hope that you get to FaceTime with special family members. And I hope that you stay safe and that you stay healthy. Remember to wash your hands. Remember that when you go out, to wear your face mask to protect yourself and to protect others. Remember, you're keeping your germs to yourself and the others are keeping their germs to themselves. And that's very important right now to decrease the spread of coronavirus. And hopefully, someday in the very near future, we'll be able to hug our neighbor and go to Grandma's house and see Grandma. Or go check on Mom and Dad and see how they're doing and actually be able to give them that hug that we're really missing. So boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed story time today. If you enjoyed it, please like and share, and you can comment, and you can subscribe. And that would make me very happy. But until next time, happy Easter, and I will see you. Have a wonderful day. And God bless. Bye.